Question 5 starts off with a reacting masses calculation and titration calculation combined. So I've already drawn the table up. For the table, I know that I am dealing with mass, molecular mass, number of moles, and ratio of the ethane dioic acid. But I'm also going to be looking at the concentration, volume, moles, and mole ratio of NaOH. So I'm going to put those both into my table so that I can then start to put the data in that I have and that I need. And not all of the data that's provided here is actually necessary to answer the question, as we're going to see. So let's start going through. I've colour-coded the numbers so we can see precisely where they've come from. And I've put in my concentration and volume of NaOH. I've converted my volume to decimeters cubed. And I've also added the mole ratios that have come from the equation, because 1 mole of ethane dioic acid reacts with 2 moles of sodium hydroxide. Now, once I've done that, I can calculate my number of moles of sodium hydroxide, which comes to 0.01265, and I've got my first mark. From there, I can use the mole ratio to work out how many moles of ethane dioic acid are reacting, and it's precisely half that value, so it's 0.006325. I've got my second mark. Now, I want to know my mass of ethane dioic acid. I have the moles, so what's missing from my triangle is the MR. So I find the MR, comes to 90, I've got my third mark. So I then calculate my mass and I get 0.569 grams. Now that's where, if people are not paying attention, they will stop and miss out on that third mark. But the question asks for the value to be given in milligrams. So we end up with 569 milligrams. So as we move on to 5.2, the student used a wash bottle containing deionized water when approaching the endpoint to rinse the inside of the conical flask. Why did this improve the accuracy of the titration? Well, what you're doing is making sure that any ethane dioic acid that is in little droplets on the side of the container is moving down into the reaction mixture. So we're making sure that all of it will react. Some people will look at this as a concern and say that you're diluting the ethane dioic acid. But remember that adding this water doesn't change how many moles of ethane dioic acid there are in there. So you're not having a negative impact on the quality of the results. What do we mean by concordant titers? Very simple, factual recall. You're within 0.1 cm cubed of each other.